to the environment. And I'm facing the east, the west, north, and south, above and below. And we're gathered here to celebrate the continuation of our culture, the awakening of the community into the traditions that have existed at the beginning of time. And we bow and we vow to extend our teaching, our teachers, and with each breath that we take, we allow the veil that separates us and time and eternity to drop. Our hearts are open. We awaken, we receive, and we rejoice and give thanks for this community. We rejoice and give thanks for being together and for this celebration. Omete.
Thank you, Ellie. Gracias. We'll be hearing more from Ellie a little later when we open up the Curanderx panel. But first, I'd like to introduce Angela Mictlanxochitl, who's kind of an old new friend who's going to help with moderation.
Yes, thank you. Ometeo, buenas noches, buenas tardes, good afternoon to everybody from all of the directions. It's beautiful to see so many kin gathered together in this sacred space, and particularly sort of these beautiful medicine people who brought together their dreams and their palabras and their experiences to this beautiful book we called Curanderx Toolkit. This evening is an introduction, to continue to build community, to share medicine. Atava has invited various people and friends who have contributed to the book who are going to share their palabra this evening. Atava will give us also an introduction to the book. And so the basic flow for this evening, we started with the beautiful prayer by Abuela Ellie, where we will go into an introduction by Angela Aguilar of our dear teacher and curandera, Atava. And then we'll ask sort of our panelists to share their words and experience of being a part of the book and contributors and where they are in their practices. And then we'll start to close sort of with some questions and answers. Throughout sort of this plática, you are welcome to share your comments in the chat. And you're also welcome to share your questions in particular in the Q&A, and both Angela and I will be sort of taking notes. So when we get to the time of question and answer, we'll have them ready to share with our circle of panelists. So with deep heart, I pass it over to Angela Aguilar. Ometeo.
Mateo, gracias. Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Angela Aguilar. I'm here this evening to celebrate this book. Where's that book? This book. And especially the author, my friend and maestra, Atava Garcia Swiecicki, the book. A few words, it's a marvelous offering. I just want to say that, it arrived just at the right time on the clock of the world. A time where we must reconnect with ourselves. We must, with ourselves, with each other, with spirit, with the world around us, with all living things, with water, with land, because it's not a secret that we're in a period of multiple crises. Right? Injustices are everywhere, but every crisis presents an opportunity for healing and for change. And so this book is going to be a guide for many people to be that change, to learn to be that change, to remember our power, to remember that no matter the generation, we are always the ones that we've been waiting for. So thank you for that, Atava. I met Atava 10 years ago at an event called Restoring Health, Childbirth, and Independence from Industrial Medicine. I was a newish birth worker at the time. And so, yeah, I had no idea how absolutely life-changing that event would be. I met so many kindred spirits who've since become friends, co-conspirators, teachers, and family, including Atava. And what I remember about that day was hearing Atava speak with such fervor about the ways industrialized medicine completely disregards, ignores, minimizes the wisdom and knowledge of ancestral medicine, of plant medicine, of indigenous ways of healing that have obviously kept us alive for millennia. Hello, we are here. And she spoke about the connections between colonialism and capitalism and their influence on industrial medicine. I mean, she was speaking to my spirit. I was looking for that. So the resonance that day was vibrating, and I knew I had found a teacher for me. Even though I was raised with our healing ways, with plant medicine, with no doubt in the presence of spirit and ancestors, with the love and connection to the earth, I became lost from it due to, family ruptures and trauma. And so here was Atava coming at us with this hierberia rebelde, right? This rebel herbalism and ancestral medicine and lifting up indigenous ways of knowing and being. So I signed up for her class, the Curanderx Toolkit, it was called, the Curanderx Toolkit. And then I just kept taking her classes. She couldn't get rid of me. And I was doing that, because Atava was giving us an opportunity to reconnect. She was always clear that she wasn't offering us a professional path, right? The goal wasn't to become a curanderix. It was to recognize the tools around us, right? The gifts of the natural world, the wisdom of the ancestors, the living knowledge of indigenous science, the ceremonies around us, within us, right? The sacredness of life. So the class was it was an invitation to understand health and healing differently by getting to the root and then making medicine out of that root. So, I think the other thing is that Atava was really purposeful, which drew me to her. She was really purposeful and she carried herself with an integrity and a fierce humility that I hadn't experienced in a teacher thus far at any point in my life. She learned alongside of us, even though she had decades of herbal wisdom under her belt. She was honest about her own healing journey. As she shared with us her path towards becoming a master herbalist, she recognized out loud that the gatekeeping that made it difficult for many people of the global majority, melanated people, queer, trans, BIPOC folks, to reconnect to that which was taken from us. She intentionally made space for us to learn and remember. She reminded us that we didn't forget these medicine ways. We were forced to be lost from them. It was by design. Because when we know, right, when a people knows who we are, when we know that healing is not only a material process, when we know that we can call on the wisdom of our ancestors with the aroma of a plant, we are unstoppable. So I'm gonna say that what Atava has curated here is nothing short of a revolutionary path for those of us who know that to transform the world that we are in, we need our plants, our ancestors. We need each other to commit to healing. And also for us city dwellers or suburb dwellers, for us detribalized natives, for us who were forced to migrate, for us who were stolen from our lands, Atava's teachings remind us that nature is everywhere. And we can have relationship with the land, with our ancestors. We can start building a relationship, right? With a single plant growing out of a single pot. Nature's everywhere. So thank you, Atava. Thank you to your family, to your ancestors, your community. Thank you for being a guiding light and for your graciousness and your wisdom. I'll pass it over to you, Atava.
Thank you, Angela. You're going to make me cry, but that's okay. Tears are good. Yeah, I just feel so blessed to have met you and so many at that event. Yeah, that was a moment, and it was also a prophecy. You know, in our Mexica calendars, it was this time, 2012 to 2026, that it is the transition to the sixth sun and the rising of this ancestral medicine. And I think, yeah, that was a big year. And it's the year the class started in Uchin, Oakland. So a lot happened that year, and I feel really grateful. And like I know you've heard me say before, you are also the answer to my prayer. Because when I first started being interested in my ancestral medicine and taking classes with Estela and Doña Enriqueta, I was actually lonely. There wasn't enough people who I knew who had the same interests. That was like 1999, and I see Brenda's face as one, and remembering like we connected on that before it kind of became this groundswell of so many people. So just thank you for that and for being in my life and the way you walk too. So I think I'm going to just start. Well, I'll say a little bit about how the book came to be. I mean, there's so many things, and I write about it actually in the book. But one is that, you know, as an herbal teacher, so much of what is considered what American herbalism in North America is really, you know, a white Eurocentric perspective, and a lot of the curriculum and all of the books that we have in herb school are written primarily actually by straight, white, cis men. And so people are always like, what's a book by, you know, BIPOC author, or even by a woman, or, you know, a BIPOC person of color or queer or trans, like very few. So I just felt, you know, that thing, it's like you notice something is missing. It's like, oh, you got to do it. And over the years with all the teaching, I just had a lot of handouts and notes. And I was like, well, you know, it won't be that hard to write a book. I just have to compile all my handouts and notes. But it was just really an idea in my head until 2018. I went through a real shadow time with my health. I faced and survived, and I'm thriving from a uterine cancer diagnosis. But in that time, facing my mortality, I really, you know, I was like, wow, what if I don't have much more time on earth? What will I do? You know, it kind of like do the things we want to do. And just coming out of the like post-treatment, you know, cave, and at an herbal event that my school Ancestral Apothecary puts together pre-COVID, every season, quote, holiday season, an herbal fair where all my students would make their products and vend, and it was just a really beautiful event. And someone came up to me and she's like, I heard you want to write a book. And it turned out to be who now is my editor, Martina from Heyday Books. And I just feel like that was divine timing, right? You know, you go through Underworld, I lost something, I faced my mortality, and then this blessing came. So I felt very, very committed to doing the writing. So, and also I'll say about the book, and you know, I really felt I had to do a lot of checking in with my elders and my mentors and my teachers and my peers to make sure that I was representing things in a good way, to make sure I had permission, and also to do as much as I could to show myself as a person in a movement. I think like when you write a book, like suddenly you're an expert. And I feel like even in like the holistic health community, we have like people on top of the pyramid. And I don't want to be on top of the pyramid. And that's really not how it is. We're really a circle and we're a community. And so I had that vision of including the 13 spotlight of, community healers, Curanderx, whatever. I know that folks have different ways they identify, but just to really share like this course of voices, because in my position as a teacher and sitting in so many classes, I was witness to so many stories of the way that our ancestral medicine like completely touched, transformed, and healed people, like over and over again. The stories are, they're many and they're magnificent. And so I feel like there's a lot of power in our stories. There's also especially a lot of power in the stories of Black, Indigenous people of color, of Black, Indigenous people of color who are queer, trans, non-binary. Like those are the stories, like this is my community and our stories are important. And I feel like as our stories are shared, then we become role models for like the people seeking the path to healing and the generations coming, ahead of us, right? The young ones. So I'm just so grateful. And part of this evening, you'll get to hear from some of the panelists. So I wanted to read, I'm going to read 2 sections. And this is what called out to me to read today. If any of you have the book, it's page 53 with the nice rosemary. The chapter 4, self-care is a revolutionary act. And this kind of also ties into what Angela said in their introduction. Like, I really consider myself a healer activist, that by empowering people with simple tools, which is why I call it toolkit, to take care of themselves and to take care of their families, like it is revolutionary. And I must say, Angela that I just talked to people at UC Berkeley, and they're like, the MCC has a medicinal herb garden, which you helped do, and all the students already know to make elderberry cordial and fire cider. I'm like, and now it's kind of normal. It's just wild. Anyways, like I see this knowledge, it is like a seed or a flame. Like, I will plant seeds in people who then blossom and they plant them in their students or their community. So anyways, chapter 4, self-care is a revolutionary act. And it starts with a quote from the great feminist poet, Black queer feminist poet, Audre Lorde. Caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare. Audre Lorde. The dominant cultural paradigm deliberately ignores the needs of our physical bodies. We are not taught to listen to our bodies. When we are feeling tired or run down, we have not learned to take time to rest. Instead, we drink another cup of coffee or eat something sugary to give us a false sense of energy and keep on working. Our mainstream culture promotes unhealthy practices such as overworking, undersleeping, and abusing substances like alcohol, nicotine, and sugar. Many Latinx, Black, and Indigenous communities are food deserts, where people have no access to whole, healthy foods such as fresh fruits and vegetables. In many communities of color, traditional folk medicine practices like curanderismo have been lost due to the impact of colonization, genocide, and intergenerational trauma. We're taught to fear our own indigenous and cultural healing practices. We're taught to mistrust herbs and the wisdom of our own bodies. Each person's health is always a reflection of the health of society. When poor and marginalized communities are located in toxic environments, individuals are not to blame for their asthma, cancer, or autoimmune disease. Nobody can be expected to know how to eat a healthy diet if the dominant culture is blocking their access to healthy food. Healing is hard work. Any person who tries to sell you a quick fix for your health problems is either completely out of touch with reality or a con artist. The journey of self-healing requires the strength and fortitude of a warrior. To heal ourselves, we must face our own inner demons, such as the parts of ourselves we dislike or fear. Many of us have suffered from abuse, violence, and other traumas, which take an incredible amount of time and effort to recover from. According to African American trauma therapist Resmaa Menakem, ancestral and intergenerational traumas such as slavery, genocide, and war can remain in our hearts and bodies, and they can take generations to fully heal. To heal ourselves, we must battle the forces of the dominant society that are invested in keeping us sick and disempowered. These include all forces of discrimination and oppression, such as colonization, capitalism, white-bodied supremacy, racism, sexism, ableism, xenophobia, Islamophobia, homophobia, and transphobia. In addition to these toxic forces out in the world, many of us have internalized their messages. It takes the determination and willpower to disentangle from these dementors of doom and to protect ourselves from their constant assault. How can we take care of ourselves when all we have learned teaches us to ignore and abuse our bodies? An important first step is to not blame ourselves for our poor health. If we had grown up in a culture that valued the well-being of all individuals, many of us wouldn't be suffering from illnesses in the same way. To heal, we must have the discipline to make changes in our lives. Often we must let go of familiar habits or addictions that may be contributing to our state of being unwell. Sometimes we are the only one in our family who wants to make healthy changes. Our family members may not understand us. They may judge our new lifestyle choices. We may feel isolated and alone in our healing path. So it does get more uplifting. But I will say, when I was writing this, a lot of it, I just felt like it was a critique of the self-help culture. You know, like we just do our meditations and our mantras and everything's well. Like it's really decontextualized, and it really puts so much blame on the individual and not enough on the society. So the second section I want to read, because at the end of the day, my love, my first love, and what brought me to this path is plants, are my herbal allies. And so I read this at another reading, but I will end with, let's see, it's in chapter 6, page 98, Learning to Love Plants. And this has a quote, starts with Robin Wall Kimmerer, who wrote Braiding Sweetgrass. And she says, "Plants tell their stories not by what they say, but what they do. It is hard to describe the feelings of fondness, love, and gratitude I have for the plant beings in my life. I began this chapter with a poem to capture the depth of these emotions. As humans, we are used to feeling love and affection for other human beings. For many, this love can extend to our animal friends as well. Yet, how can we learn to love a plant? Plants differ more from us than do animals, so developing a relationship with them requires more subtlety. Plants do not have eyes or ears or hearts. They do not move around like humans, animals, insects, and birds. Plants are sessile, which means that they are permanently rooted in one place. For humans who have been separated from their indigenous consciousness, it may be easy to assume that since plants don't share common characteristics with the animal kingdom, they lack intelligence. However, quite the opposite is true. Plants are extremely intelligent. They not only share with us the 5 senses of sight, sound, taste, touch, and smell, but they actually possess 15 more senses. We can learn to love plants by spending time with them. As healers, we build our connection to plants as we begin to consciously interact with them. As we take walks in nature, as we tend our gardens, as we cook and make medicine with plants, over time our relationship to plants will blossom. Pun intended. The more I learn about plants and the more I strengthen my relationship with them, the more I am convinced that they possess unconditional love for us humans. Despite all the harm human beings have inflicted on the earth, plants are still here to nurture and support us. Plants give us food, clothing, and shelter. The herbal medicine of the plant world can help our bodies stay healthy and heal us when we've been sick or injured. Herbs can help us relax and sleep, and they can also give us energy when we're feeling depleted. They can bring calm when we are feeling stressed, and they can lift our spirits when we are depressed. Herbs are very effective in treating trauma, which in curanderismo we call susto. They can help call the soul back into the body. Herbs comfort us when we are suffering from heartbreak or loss. Herbs assist and support us human beings in all stages of life, from birth to death. As human beings, we carry the memory of plants in our DNA. All of our ancestors have been interacting with plants for countless generations. Our ancestors used plants for food, shelter, and clothing, in ceremony, and for medicine. Before our ancestors could go to a drugstore to buy aspirin for a headache, they learned to identify which plants growing around them would be helpful in relieving pain. The genetic memory of our plant ancestors lives in our bones and blood. Take a moment to pause and think about the way plants have supported your life. Is your home built from trees? Is your clothing made of cotton? What is on your dinner plate? What is in your medicine chest? What plants are growing in your garden or in your neighborhood? Do you have a favorite tree you like to visit? Is there a place in nature that brings you a sense of peace and calm? As we open our minds and hearts to the plant world, we begin to recognize all they give us each day unconditionally. As we take in the generous gifts from the plant kingdom, it is natural to begin to feel care and to love them. You don't have to work very hard at it. That is the end of my reading section. I will wait to see if there's questions and responses at the end of the talk, but I will pass it on to Angela for the panel.
Thank you, Atava. Thank you for sharing those beautiful excerpts, and I look forward to the questions. We're going to now move forward with our panelists, and I'd like to invite Abuela Ellie first to share her palabra. And the question that we have for you is, how do you feel about the Curanderx Toolkit, and what do you hope people can receive from the testimony that you shared? Adelante, Abuela.
Oh, gracias. Oh, wow. It really took me down memory lane as I was listening to Atava's reading. I'm 79, and I was the youngest in my family. And my mother worked in a bracero camp as a cook. So during that time, they used to send me away from home to live with other families. And it could be next door, or it could be miles away where I wouldn't see or hear from anybody for months at a time. And that was usually what happened. But as I listened to Atava, I realized, and just looking at what how the book is arranged, it just brings me home to the questions that I have personally had. It's kind of an answer to my prayer. The questions that I have had throughout my life have taken me into a broad range of experiences, including my education, where I was really curious at Cal Berkeley. I was curious to find out what had happened in our culture. I knew something had happened, but I didn't know the extent of it or the shape and form that our history had taken. And I was disappointed to ask within the Department of Chicano Studies, about the culture, and to be told that it was superstitious, that it was antiquated, that we had no space for that in pursuit of higher education. That was my first lesson in opening up to the idea that I wanted to know what the medicine was about, what dreams were about, and that I was, and what those comments said to me way back in between 74 and 76 that I was there for my lower division. What that said to me was, you're barking up the wrong tree. There is nothing to find. And when I started looking, it was confirmed in the anti-nativism that I found, in the way that the traditions were minimized, and especially when I was looking at health and I wanted to know more about curanderismo, but when I looked I'm like the library, the stacks in the library had information that was so antiquated. It called curanderismo names. Right now, I'm not remembering what the names were, but it basically said there is only one thing that curanderismo is good for, and that's to cure empacho. That's all you will find, that's all you will get, and that's all there is to it. That infuriated me, and I had to start from scratch to put my own life together to see what was happening to us. And my life was no model of family surrounding me and people that loved me and knew me, surrounding me and supporting me in the smallest interest that I might have to find out more about curanderismo. When I got to my master's degree, I can't think of the word that it would be, but I started in the multidisciplinary studies program where I could go inward and find out what was going on with my body and then measure it with the instruments that were available at that time. I realized that I could make my hands cold, that I could make my hands warm, that I could deepen my breath, that I could remember things that were traditionally at that point considered part of the unconscious and unavailable to us. So with that, I just started putting my own books together, my own experiences together to find out what was true for me. And by that time, maybe I had been keeping a dream journal for about 5 years, but they ridiculed is not the word I'm looking for. They kind of isolated me from, they tried to control what I was curious to find out about. And again, I found out that I was alone on this path of finding out how our bodies respond, how our mind responds to breathing deeply, how we respond to our dreams, and if we dare to awaken within our dreams, at that point it was like, you're an idiot for even imagining that you could do that. That if I could do that, there was something, it was like I had to trudge through all the popular prejudices of our dreams and meeting ancestors, being guided by our ancestors, and all the things that I was finding out that was true for me in my experience. I had to trudge through the cushion or the barrier of curiosity to find out who the native mind, what the native mind was capable of doing, what it was capable of experiencing, and what it was capable of creating. So it's like 45 years later that I've been in this practice, to have a book like the toolkit, Curanderx Toolkit, it's an answer, for me, it's an answered prayer. It's not only answered prayer for me personally, but it's an awakening within the culture that removes the words demonic, that removes the idea that Native people are superstitious, ignorant, and unprepared for the modern world. As I have delved in more deeply, I have connected to my ancestors. I have connected with people doing their transition from this life to the next. I have seen them reach their ancestors. I have been given information that was for myself and my own healing, as well as information that was to be shared with other people. That when their mind wasn't open to receive it, I could be used as a vehicle to encourage them to delve within. So, I'm saying a lot, so I think that what I will finish with is that the book, the Curanderx Toolkit, is it's opening the door, but it's also pulling the curtain back that we are a vibrant people, that we can communicate with each other whether we're in the same room or in another dimension, that we can support and encourage one another to heal from illnesses that appear to be incurable.
Mhm.
So this is an era of just knocking the walls down, letting the light in, letting the wisdom through, and just remembering that we each are vehicles for the wisdom that has been hidden, that was destroyed, that we are vehicles for healing ourselves and healing one another. We don't do it by ourselves. We do it with our plantas. We do it with the aid of eyes from other dimensions. And we do it by staying connected to each other. This community is vital, it's energetic, it's creative, and only we can set the limits. And what curanderismo is about is tearing the walls down.
Thank you, Abuela Ellie. That's very powerful and beautiful. And for those who are on the clocks, you're joining us, I'm showing them a picture of you in the book, from the book right now. It's a really beautifully designed book. Yes.
Yes.
So thank you, Abuela Ellie. Now we're going to pass the palabra on to our dear Brenda Salgado.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? All right. So I want to say that I feel really blessed because I'm at my friend's house. We're about to start Women's Moon Circle for the full moon in Aquarius after this call. And her backyard is full of plants. There's so many echinaceas blossoming and all these. She's an amazing curandera and a therapist. So it feels like very auspicious to be surrounded by her beautiful medicine garden while I'm talking to you all. So I want to thank her for that. So that question really hit my heart, and Ellie's reply to Atava, I'm so grateful to you for being on this walk together, for being in this curiosity around our ancestors and medicine, and yeah, just being companions of destiny on this walk of medicine. When I heard you wanted to write a book and you were working on it, I got so excited. And then when you asked me to be one of the interviewees, I got even more excited. I think one of the things that I want the world to get from this book is just, you talked about gatekeeping, like how accessible traditional medicine is to all of us, how empowered we can be to be our own healers, to trust our own wisdom in medicine. And that there's things to learn from our elders and our mentors for sure, but also that we all carry so much medicine. The other thing I hope people get from your book too is I have experienced a deep love from all of my teachers in kind of respect and relationship with plants, not just seeing them as things we use, but beings that are our teachers and our mentors in and of themselves, and they're precious relatives. And I feel like you carry that so strongly in Ancestral Apothecary and the teachings that you had there, Atava. And it's woven all throughout your book, that love and respect for those beings that want to support us on our healing journey. So I see that in so many different ways, the ways that you talk about and highlight different plants, and the beauty and the artwork. I feel like it's such a beautiful book. I want people to really appreciate not just the wisdom in the words, but the beauty, and how much the beauty is part of the medicine too. I think about our teacher Sergio, and he talks about, you know, like in our Totonalcayos, our chakras, like the one in the heart area is about blossoming on our path of destiny. And I see you blossoming on your path of destiny with this book and in your community. And I want people to take away that love, that connection, that medicine, and that kind of permission to blossom on their own path of destiny, whatever that is. It might be medicine, might be something else, but that we all come here with gifts, and we're meant to blossom and create beauty in the world. And healing ourselves is helps us to clear away the layers that keep us from doing that. So I feel like we're in such a different time. I connect so much to what Ellie shared around some of those things. I remember when I was stepping in my path, and some members of my family being very excited for me, and other ones being like, Brenda thinks she's in India, or like just not understanding. And just, I'm so grateful for my grandmom, my most powerful ancestor mentor on the other side, because she told me to just be patient with them, that they would come around. And she kept saying, they won't be changed by anything you say, or any book you give them to read. They're going to be changed by the experience of being in ceremony with you, experiencing healing with you, and then their world will open up. And I feel like this book is like that. I was so grateful. I was teaching at Fairy Congress just a couple of weeks ago, and I brought a bunch of copies, your signed copies, and they sold out so fast. I can't even tell you. I was like, should have brought more. But I'm just excited about your medicine traveling all over the world. And for, the little girl that I was, that knew, my mom asked me when I was little, what are you supposed to be when you grow up? What do you want to be? And I said, I know what I'm supposed to be. God and I have talked about it. I'm supposed to be a spiritual teacher and a healer, but I don't see anybody like that here. I was raised Catholic and in California, and and then I didn't meet medicine people until college. And then I was like, oh, there it is. And I feel this this joy, because I know there's a lot of young ones coming in with powerful medicine right now, and blueprints for the new systems for the time of the sixth sun, as these other systems are collapsing. And I see these young ones coming with, spiritual activations and curiosities that, prior generations would have had to study decades for to experience, and they're flowing through them. And so I feel like this combination of the young ones coming in with medicine and books like yours coming out is like laying the groundwork for the opening of the sixth sun and more beauty and healing in the world. So thank you. Thank you so much for all the joy and love and effort that you poured into this book, and for including your community. I know that, we talked about my love of roses. And I'm grateful to see that picture with the roses. So I think that's all I want to share. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to your ancestors for making you possible, and for this medicine in the world. Love you.
Thank you, Brenda. Yes, it's a beauty. She's covered in roses in the book, so you have to check it out. We now pass the palabra to our querida Marcela Sabin. Gracias.
Thank you, Angela. And thank you, Atava, from the bottom of my heart, for this beautiful gift that you have been given to all of us. As I'm thinking about this book, I think this book is a testimony of many years of you weaving healers, curanderas, knowledge in the Bay Area and beyond that, and create a movement of reclaiming and bringing the awareness of the beauty of this medicine. And I think sometimes we think that things are lost because we didn't remember or we didn't practice, but all of those memories of this medicine were living in us, was alive in our soul, in our DNA. So, and I want to say that this is beyond only the Mexican or Guatemala or Salvador. It's like we all have indigenous roots. And in one way or others, people who were connected to the earth tradition, to their own original roots and ancestors, have medicine that was connected to the plants, to the element, to nature. So this is like for me, it's like a wave that opened doors for us to remember and bring in the importance of this medicine into our communities. For me, it has been like amazing to see how you create a movement of healers, a movement of curanderas that started with like the ones who are here in the panel and the ones who are in the book, we were like pioneers, like starting the path and the road. But this grow up so much, and now there are so many people using the herbs, using not only the herbs like the bath, the many ways, many different ways. And I can see this revival of reconnected to the ancestors. So I want to touch a little bit in that direction. Like for me, like I met you 20 years ago when I came to United States, and we did the path of remembering and reclaiming our indigenous mind. And that path brought like a lot of connection with our ancestors. So I'm very honored not to see how we are guides from the other side, not to remember and also to bring the medicines to this side, and in so many ways. Something that I really see the power of healing, that when we connect and recognize also the elders, in like Ellie is here with us now, bringing all of this beautiful medicine, Brenda. So we have this kind of beautiful way of weaving also from the old generations to the next ones. And that is something that I think that you create this container that we can start to bring those things in that direction. So it's a beautiful gift. And in my part that I share, I started from like reaching my own ancestral traditions and ways of reconnecting. And that led me to find that the original elders, the original ancestors are the fire, the water, the earth, and the air. And every tribe carried medicines in those ways, ceremonies. And I have been going through a very deep healing process through cancer, and we share that a little bit with Atava. And when she was doing the interview, I was in one of my harder times. And I can see how much the plants were my friends when I couldn't be outside with anyone. I talked to them and they were there for me. I was growing the corn and the Buddha, the pasote, and they were like really, really present in my healing as everything. So when the elder says we are, to all of my relations, we are really weaving everything that is alive. So, and we can not heal if we are not in all of our relations, honoring with respect, with gentleness, with compassion, with love. And I want to end with one thing that came to me the last few days. Like sometimes we try to remember the ancestors through our pain and through the things that have been hard. But I have been receiving this message that remember their joy, remember their grace, remember their path of happiness, because those things also nurture us and bring medicine in a different way to our life. So that is what I would like to see, how we can remember the joy of our ancestors and embody those things in the relationship with everything, especially with the plants in this way. And this book is beautiful. It's a beautiful gift. I agree. It's a beautiful, when you see the flowers, the pictures, the way that it's doing, it's like I'm so grateful for this baby that you have, Atava, and for all of us to be part of this. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Gracias, Marcela. I love that joy. Maybe all kind of tickle ourselves, maybe right now, wherever you may be, to tickle your ancestors. And I just want to acknowledge we are seeing the questions in the Q&A, and we will acknowledge and address them sort of when we come towards the end of our hearing from all of our panelists. Now it's really with big heart and love. I pass the palabra to Raheni Gonzalez.
Thank you, Angela. I'm very humbled and honored to be here and to be a part of this book, and I feel that it's groundbreaking, you know, in a lot of ways, because one thing that hasn't been mentioned here is that many of us that are spotlighted in this book are queer or two-spirit. Not all, but many of us are. And that's not something that you're going to find in a book like this often. So that makes it very, very special, very, very special. And I feel that my role as someone being spotlighted, my story in that book is to really serve as a reflection to especially young queer, two-spirit, and trans folks who may not see themselves in ceremonial communities often, and sometimes who have gone into ceremonies and have either, you know, been misgendered, or for me, as somebody who is two-spirit and I have a certain genitalia, may be forced to wear a dress in ceremony, and how harmful and painful that could be for somebody like me, or for a trans woman, you know, to show up at a ceremony and be perhaps forced to work with the men at the fire, you know, things like this. And so I pray that my story and my role in this book opens minds to further decolonize these ideas that those of us that are queer and trans and two-spirit, non-binary, that we are in some way this old idea, this story that the colonizers have put in our minds, that we are perverted, that we deserve to be outcasted, because we do not. And we have so much medicine to offer. And I pray that the young ones out there that are maybe not in the urban environment, some acceptance, right? But there's so many places where there are young ones who are in danger and are being harmed, but that they can maybe get their hands on this book and open it up and see, hey, look at this. This is somebody like me, you know, who's practicing medicine, you know, who has risen up, you know, from being rejected from their families, you know, somebody who is standing in their power and that they can be empowered, right? So yeah, I feel that that's for me my main role in this book, and I think it's so important. And I thank you, Atava, for including me and for, you know, making the title the Curanderx Toolkit, right? I know that when you first started teaching this class at Ancestral Apothecary, it was the Curanderx Toolkit, right? And then as we grow and evolve, right, and we shift with the times and we open our minds, right, we remove that gender from it, right, and we open up to the possibilities and to the ancient truth, really, the ancient truth that medicine does not necessarily have a gender, right? And that those of us that stand in those in-between places, you know, can hold very powerful roles in ceremony that, you know, we have, and we should continue to do that as we continue to grow in our ceremonies. So, and that's my primary role, really. And I do a lot of work with the Two-Spirit community now on a regular basis through Spirit Root Medicine People, Indigenous Two-Spirit Life Ways. We hold monthly circles, talking circles, drum circles, prayer circles. And I also am going to be at the end of August, in case there's anybody out there who's listening might be interested, going to be doing a BIPOC circle for a retreat in Saratoga Springs, California, for trans, masculine, and gender nonconforming folks. And I'm here now on some rural land in New Mexico that I have a vision for, specifically for QT BIPOC and Two-Spirit people to practice ceremony on this land. So if you're interested in any of this, I'll put my handle and you can go to my link tree and check it out. But I'm just grateful, so grateful for this book, Atava. And I've known you for so long. I met you when I was 26 years old, I believe. And now I'm about to turn 52 next week. So we've known each other so long, and I'm so grateful to just have been on this path with you. And so honored to be part of this book. So thank you so much. Hahom. Many blessings, everyone.
Raheni, just a quick shout out from many comments. Deborah Sandoval says, yes, such a blessing. La medicina es para todo. So thank you. And we're going to close our panelist circle with the beautiful spirit who got us started. I invite Angela Raquel Aguilar to have the palabra. Ometeo.
Mateo and Lakesh, y'all are like speaking my heart, and I just feel really honored to be here, you know, following you to Ra right now. You know, those words that you speak are a prayer for us going forward. You know, there can be no other way, I think, is what you're saying. And so thank you so much for that. And Ellie, when you were speaking earlier, you know, I just had this like really like deep moment. I was just like, yeah, you've seen the change. You know, there are folks who are, you know, coming in and this is normal for them. You know, some of the younger folks, you know, at least that I know in our community, who are like, yeah, you know, I think a lot of it. So I just want to honor you too, Ellie, for bringing that history. And I think what the class, being in the class, being a Atava student, and then being, you know, part of this book, you know, one of the things I shared and one of the things that the medicine, you know, that I bring through my healing work is that, you know, healing is messy. It's a struggle, you know, and so we can't do it alone. It's always never, ever can happen alone. And I think Atava, you reading that chapter, you know, that portion of that chapter is a reminder of that. And I learned that a lot in your class, you know, because everything we did was in community, you know, it was in circle. We weren't in rows, you know, we were in a circle learning. We were hearing each other's hearts. People were sharing things for the first time about, you know, their lives and their dreams and their traumas and all of it in that space. And we held each other, you know, through the mess, through the crying, through the tears, through all of it. And so part of my journey has been healing, being able to get on the path of healing from childhood sexual abuse. And it's such a big, you know, such a big shock to our, not just to the child, but to the community. And it's always secret, right? It's one of those things we can't talk about. We're kind of, it's a shame, right? We don't talk about it. And so this medicine path, you know, the teachings have given me the courage to be able to do that in a way that doesn't feel like I'm re-traumatizing myself, you know, of not having to like recall kind of those, like what you shared, Marcela, you know, the hurt, the pain, but like really giving me the medicine, right? This class and this book and what you've captured in this book, Atava, was like, these are the tools that I need to be able to work through this really difficult experience that nobody wanted to talk about. And I know there are so many people who have yet to be like, get on that journey. And so I think what I learned through you, Atava, is to be brave, you know, and to be courageous. And that starts with our healing, our own journey that never ends. And that's that's okay. It is a journey. And the other thing is, being able to do that work of, healing, bringing along my little self, my inner child, is as a parent, being able to do that work to heal and prepare for my children. They see and they know this medicine. They're the ones I'm thinking of too. They know the plants, they know what to use when they're not feeling okay, and they share it with others. They know the medicine of that medicine has no gender, right? Has no sexuality. They know that. They know themselves as medicine. And so, I don't think I could have really come to that in this lifetime if I hadn't had the guidance and wisdom of a community of people, of elders, of peers who were willing to be brave enough to be on a healing journey, and to go through all the highs and lows of it. And so I just want to honor all of us, the whole chain of people, Atava, that, or all the little seeds that you planted, whether we know them all personally or not. I just want to honor all of those folks who are really, really taking kind of the cargo, to carry this medicine forward and to teach it and to share it with the younger generation. So again, thank you so much to all of you.
Thank you, Angela. Atava, I want to maybe invite you maybe to offer a quick palabra in response to hearing all these beautiful testimonios, and then we may have time for one question or two.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for sharing. It was very powerful to hear your stories. And I will say that was one of the unexpected blessings about writing this book, was having the opportunity to interview these 13 beings who had been in my life already as good friends, or my maestras, or my students, my colleagues, but sitting down and actually hearing someone's story, like all of your stories were medicine for me and really, really touched me. And, in particular, yeah, talking to the elders in the book, Ellie and Trudy and Maria, and just learning about their journeys, because I realized that actually I needed to be educated. The book, they say teach what you learn, I think, or teach what you need to learn. I think it's the same, you write what you need to learn. Like by me writing this book, I became conscious of the moment in history that I'm standing in the shoulders of the people who've come before me, and what the paths, what they went through. I mean, all the way back to 500 years ago and beyond, but definitely in the generation of, Ellie, who's my mother's age, and just realizing that this moment, even though there's a lot of openness, it hasn't always been that way. And we could see with the political climate, it doesn't mean it will always be this way, So I just feel like it's really precious, which also is more of the urgency to get the word out too. Like I really believe if there's critical mass of consciousness and empowerment, like things are, it'll be harder to keep people down. So I just want to say that I learned a lot by the interviews and the writing, and I really believe in the power of story and the power of palabra, like just, and wherever we are in the wheel of life, like whatever age, whatever gender, whatever culture, like we actually, there's medicine in that. So I'm really, really grateful for that, and for all that you shared, because I know, some of the stories are really vulnerable, a lot of painful stories, but I've thought a lot about, stories and popular culture. It feels like there's a lot of tragedy. There's a lot of this person like goes down and then they never get up. But I'm like, I like these stories of like rebirth and renewal, and like people who like had really hard shit happen and then, got some skills, got some community, and were able to transform it. Like that's the narrative I want to put into, the future. So I feel like everybody who is part of it who I talk to, has some of that, and myself included. I mean, that's another part of the book is that path of the wounded healer. Like, I think for myself, I really had to demystify this romantic notion that a curandera is like kind of magical and just does all these things and has all these superpowers, which, yes, and I don't know, maybe it's just for a different time, a different generation. I feel like every single person I know who's walking with medicine, it's like we are trained by our own physical challenges, our emotional challenges, our, challenges of being oppressed for whatever reason, ancestral trauma, mental, I mean, all of it. Like, those are what, it's like our training ground. And like you said, Angela, like, we never stop learning, the challenges never end. So for me, that's also an important reframe, because we could look at like, oh, I had this or I had that, I had cancer. One way could be I feel like a victim, which, sometimes I do too, but it's like, what am I learning? How is this helping me to grow? Maybe we're just learning how the medicine works to shift things, or how prayer works, when we're praying with someone who's ill and then it transforms, right? Or like Marcela, when you and Liz and Trudy were there, when we did the whole like ceremonia, when my dad went in to be cremated, like, this medicine is, and the medicina is every part of our lives. It has a blessing to support us. It might not take all the bad things away, or like make us perfectly healthy, which whatever that is, but it's there to like help us navigate all the highs and lows with, again, the unconditional love of the plants, and then of the community that we're building. So I guess we can go to questions, and I see people I know in the chat.
Yeah.
Hi, Karen. And
Atava, I want to recommend something as the moderator, because the questions are very deep and could take us, I think, to deep places. But it's your choice. I would recommend maybe we have a follow-up to maybe answer questions. I think that would be really beautiful and powerful, and it would give everybody an opportunity to give their insight and thoughts. If you want to do that, and
okay.
then
I'm going to just take a moment to look at the questions and look at the chat. Okay. If anybody who's on the panel wants to say anything while I do that, I just want to see what's percolating in the collective.
Sure.
I was reading the questions, and I agree with Angela. They are very deep and touch so many things. That's maybe like will be another hour of panel, and I also want to honor the deepness of these questions. That is such an honor to have these kind of reflections.
Yeah.
So I'm very open to do follow-up, but I want to honor the ones who wrote these questions, and say thank you for these reflections that are very powerful. I got so many things to say about both, but I think will open up a big probably time, and I want to honor the deepness and not take it lightly, like with a short answer or a quick answer. So I'm very open to follow up or do something like that.
Yeah, I think I was reading the questions and the comments in the panel, so it's so good to see folks. Hi to Ana Maria and Tara and Karen and my Tia and Rosemary, so many people, Claudia. I just have to say the names of people I know. Yeah, Haida, I see your name in the attendance. So, yeah, I think, can everybody see the questions that we're talking about? Are those visible to everybody or just to the panelists?
Just to the panel.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, yeah, I think a follow-up, because we are on time, and I know we're having people coming from other time zones. I think the conversation about, how we move, how we walk with it, with people in our communities having a lot of different perspectives of what it is, and the conflation with brujeria, and then also there's a whole movement of people reclaiming brujeria. It is very complex. I did write one page of it in my book because it's also can be a generational thing, or a cultural, like where you are, whether you're in the Bay Area or in, Oaxaca, right? There's so many different aspects to that. So Marcela, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was thinking that maybe we can post the questions in the chat so people can read it, and then when we do a follow-up, I don't know if we're going to send like an email or how it's going to be that, but because they are anonymous, I think that would be good to share if that's something that maybe is useful.
I'm on it. I'm on it.
Great, that's good. Yeah, and actually, I bought a 1-month subscription to Zoom webinars. So I was like, I should do a lot of webinars because I'm paying for it. So yeah, I think it's good to have community conversations. And that is one of the things, the unexpected, but maybe not so unexpected blessings of the book. It's just, I'm hearing from people all across Turtle Island and just hearing about their communities and the work they're doing. And this movement is a lot bigger than I had realized, and there's little like, pods or whatever, gardens or ecosystems of people reclaiming and practicing and working together. And so that's very exciting to me. And I'm really looking forward to the cross-pollination of meeting other people. So I will say, did you put you put the questions in the chat. I can post a slide, but I will be teaching the Curanderx Toolkit starting September 8th. Someone in the chat says they're signed up. So there's still space, and several people who've been here will be the guest maestrex. It will also kind of through Ancestral Apothecary, there's like a spring and a fall session. They're now on Zoom. Maybe they'll be, and actually this one is hybrid, where optional people can meet with me in Albuquerque, maybe Ra, if you're here, I'll bring you in. And then optional people can meet with Ellie and Sarah and Elisa in Oakland for just a day, an outdoor day. And then the one ask I have is for people to write reviews of the book. It doesn't have to be on Amazon. I did a little quick check about all the good places, like there's Goodreads, there's Powell's Books, there's many others. So reviews help. That's what I heard in the algorithm of whatever, the multiverse. I'm really appreciating all the personal testimonies I've received just via email or Instagram or whatever. They just touched my heart. Everyone is just so meaningful. So thank you all. And stay tuned because I'm thinking of doing like a little contest for write a review. You'll get a submission and then I'll raffle off something. So I don't quite have that all together, but please write reviews. And hi, Johnny. So hi, Maria. So many people. So I think since we're close to the end, we can ask any final closing, Angela, or any panelists?
I'm good. I'm ready to ask Abuela Ellie to lead us in closing prayer.
Thank you. Yeah, gosh, this has been such a full and rich experience looking at the book and looking at our experiences and examining who we are as human beings. So thank you all for being here and for sharing your experiences, being on your path. And we also give thanks to the ancestors who supported Atava through this gathering of information, and making sense of it in the broader perspective that people need to live it, experience it, be moved by it spiritually and physically and mentally. So we give thanks to the four directions for joining us, for bringing your energy, your wisdom, to all who shared, to all who participated behind the scenes, and especially to Atava for having the foresight of the need to continue to expand the experience of curanderismo. So in the weeks that come, we give up the book to the universe. We give thanks for our being able to participate in this revival, this regeneration, and give thanks to everyone who participated, to everyone who has participated in the past, and especially to the ancestors who have joined us, to the four directions above and below. We give thanks, and we move forward with our hearts open, in trust, in faith, in love and compassion, to be who we've been called to be, to share that, and to allow ourselves to be bigger than what we were taught we were. Rich and full, wholesome, vibrant, loving, kind. Thank you for gathering here. Thank you for being here. To our ancestors, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thy will, not ours, be done. Ometeo.
Thank you, Ellie. Thank you, everyone, panelists, Raheni, Brenda, Marcela, Ellie, Angela. Thank you, Angela. Help me. This, believe it or not, was live streamed on YouTube. It must be the Aquarius thing. I decided to do all this new technology. So, yay, if you had to leave early, if you want to share it with friends, it will just be available. Talk about a big seed going out into the cosmos. So it will be available. And yeah, and we'll just through all of our channels, if we want to have another conversation, I think it's a great idea. Because this is how we advance our communal knowledge, is by talking about these questions and the impact of colonization and
Thank you.
Christianity, and whatever else comes up. So good night, everybody. I'm going to look at the chat one more time. Yeah, thank you all for coming.
Good night. Have a beautiful full moon, dreams and prayers.
Thank you. Night.
Buenas noches. Good night.
Buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
I know how to turn a web one. Oh, I just press end. I can do it. Okay. Thank you for showing up, and we'll.
Thank you. Thank you, Atava.
Thank you, Atava. Thank you, Angeles.
Gracias.
Thank you for facilitating them. Thank you.